Thank you all. Sandra and I are honored to be with you today. We did take a few minutes to go run and see our middle daughter and her husband at their new house up on Big Texas Valley Road. They told me that it was going to be their address. I said, I never heard of Big Texas Valley Road, but I have seen it now several times, and you know, that's important. Sandra tells me and reminds me, you cannot forget family. No matter how busy you get in what you do, you can't forget your family. And I was appreciative of the fact you were allowing me to be a few minutes late as we went to see their new completed house that they moved into. I want to thank all of those who are here, the elected officials, and all of you who've taken time to come. I am especially proud of my relationship with your Congressman, Phil Gingrich. Phil has served you honorably with distinction for many years, and he is going to be leaving that position. But we have a good replacement, I know, that is coming to take that position. But he has made the sacrifices to serve in Washington, and I know what that means. I spent my term there too. But I want to thank all of you for, first of all, being such supportive citizens of my election 4 years ago. Your community has been behind us from the beginning. I thank you also for the support you've shown to Sandra as she has tried to stimulate young children to be interested in reading. She has read to young children in all 159 counties, all 181 school districts, and now in excess of 370 schools across the state of Georgia. I suggested at a meeting a little earlier, I think I need a campaign sticker that says, "Re-elect Sandra First Lady." I think I might get a good bit of mileage out of that one. But we're trying to do things that are important to the future of our children and our grandchildren. And we have done some really good things. You don't get to hear them all because sometimes the media doesn't want to tell the good side of the stories. But I'm going to tell you a few of them. But let me first of all tell you what this race for governor, the race for United States Senate, the race for each of these individual races and constitutional officers and local representatives and senators is all about. This is a red state. The Democrat Party is trying to turn it to either purple or blue. Now, you know what happens to an individual when they turn purple or blue? It means they've been starved for oxygen. In a republic such as we live in, the oxygen of a republic is made up of freedom, personal responsibility, and the truth. When you starve a society from those three things, they will turn purple and they'll eventually turn blue. And when they do, truth goes away, personal responsibility goes away, and individual freedom vanishes. That's what this election is about. Now, it doesn't sound like, as you listen to television commercials, that it's that, but it really and truly is. Thank you for letting this be a red state. Thank you for supporting the members of the General Assembly who have worked so hard to help me. Christian Coomer is one of my floor leaders. Katie and the other members of the delegation that you have here in the House and the Senate have all been supporters of the efforts we have made. Now, when I came into office in 2011, I was told within the first day or two things that really caused me great concern. One was, they said, "Governor, you know that HOPE program that we've all been so proud of? If you don't do something, it will be bankrupt by 2013. And you will not be able to fulfill the promises that have been made to young people who worked hard to keep their grade point averages up and be qualified." Well, thanks again to the General Assembly's working with me. We not only saved the HOPE program, we have continued it as one of the richest post-high school programs in the country, and the other two components of our HOPE program, The pre-K program is now nationally recognized as one of the best in the country. Our technical college Hope Grant program is likewise recognized as one of the best in the country. So we have kept it strong, and it will be there for generations. In fact, the new commissioner of the Lottery Corporation, I charged her with a goal. I said, I want you to raise $1 billion for education this past year. She didn't quite get there, but she got the highest amount of money we have ever had from the lottery dedicated to Hope, $945 million in 1 year. The second thing they told me that alarmed me greatly was they said, Governor, you remember that rainy day fund that people talk about that you can call on when you need it in times of hard times? Well, there's only enough money in there to keep government running for 2 days. Now, at that point in January of 2011, we were still in the grips of the Great Recession. You should be pleased to note, once again, with conservative budgeting and with the assistance of the General Assembly, we have added over $700 million to the rainy day fund, and we are rapidly approaching $1 billion in that fund just in case we have to call on it. I've made the analogy that when you're in a bad situation, especially with a downward spiraling economy, it's sort of like looking at a merry-go-round. And the question is, where are you going to jump on? And which horse are you going to ride on the merry-go-round? Some states decided they could not live with less money. They were getting less money because their economy was hurting just like everybody else's was. So they raised taxes on their citizens and on their corporations. And we have benefited from their mistake. We are seeing companies move from all over the country to the state of Georgia to bring business and job opportunities for our citizens. And yes, Katie, the number has changed. It is now 294,000. I believe Mark has told me that most recently. We are rapidly approaching 300,000 private sector jobs in Georgia in less now than 4 years. I believe that is a record that all of us should be proud of. But the horse that I decided to ride on the merry-go-round was that of job creation. Because I truly believe that if a person has a good job, they can support themselves, they can support their family, they can be charitable in their community, and they'll have less reason to ask government to do things for them because they're able to do it for themselves. That is a conservative philosophy, and we have put it into practice in the state of Georgia. And I believe you can see the results. I know that last fall when Site Selection magazine had the audacity to say that Georgia was the #1 state in the nation in which to do business, the Democrats fell all over themselves trying to discredit Site Selection magazine. They spent a lot of time and effort and wind trying to do that. But then along comes this year and CNBC confirms that and says Georgia is the #1 state in the nation in which to do business. They had apoplexy. It's pretty hard for liberals to attack CNBC. And they confirmed it. Now that is something we are proud of. It's the first time ever that Georgia has received that distinction. And it is not just something that you put on your mantle and brag about. It is something that is a recruiting tool that we have been fortunate enough to use all around the world. The largest single capital investment that has come to Georgia since Kia came in 2006 was Baxter International, a major pharmaceutical company that is building a facility on I-20 east of Atlanta in the Newton County, Walton County area. They are making a $1 billion capital investment. And when their consultant talked with us after the announcement was made that they had come to Georgia, he said, let me tell you, when I first started talking to Baxter about where they should locate, he was their consultant. He was charged with telling them where should you build this new facility? He said, I suggested that they come to Georgia. And he said, they said, Georgia? Who in the world ever thought about building something in Georgia? He said, I told them all of the things that you had to offer, and at the conclusion of it, they said, well, my goodness, that's not even a close call. We're coming to Georgia. So don't let people deceive you. Our reputation is great, and it needs to be talked about, and it is certainly something we should be proud of. But we haven't been satisfied just with saying things. We've actually done things. And many times, as you know, in political climates, people vote based on slogans. They base their vote on rhetoric. Let me tell you something. Rhetoric never created a job. They can talk about policy, but if they never put it in place, and if it's the wrong policy, it never creates a job. We decided when we asked the business community of this state, what is it going to take to make Georgia a manufacturing state once again? Because as you know, you very well know here in this community, we used to be a part of the old textile belt that crisscrossed our state. That went away. High cost of labor, low cost in other parts of the world, it went away. But they said if you will remove sales tax from energy that is used for manufacturing, you will see manufacturing come back. And that is exactly what we did, and that is the result that has occurred. You live in a part of the state where you're seeing that manifest virtually every week. We have had major announcements all across this state, but Northwest Georgia has been one of those areas that has benefited significantly. Now, we have seen some of the old, what used to be called the carpet industry, which now is rightfully called the flooring industry. We have seen them come back from the worst recession they have had in a very long time. Because we got hit, because we were a state that was growing, and that meant people were building subdivisions, people were building commercial buildings. When the recession hit, it didn't hit gradually, it hit suddenly. Many of the developers went bankrupt, but we are seeing that rebound now. And the best evidence I have that people think it's going to continue is when you see the flooring industry, primarily here in Northwest Georgia, announce 3,000 to 4,000 new jobs within the last year. New plants are being built, and those that are already here are expanding. That's good news for all of us. And the bigger message from that is, if you're developing and producing something that is needed in construction, you're not going to make hundreds of millions of dollars of capital investment unless you think construction is coming back as well. I had the opportunity to talk with a developer just a couple of days ago, and he was telling me, he said, I am developing 500 homes, and I cannot find enough good crews to be able to frame those homes. Now, that's something that we haven't heard in a very long time. And what we're doing at the state level to address job shortages is one that I hope all of you pay attention to. We have decided that if we're going to have the workforce that we need to devote the money that we're spending on education funneled in the direction that will produce those workers that are needed. We did an assessment. What jobs do we have in the state of Georgia that are currently available and we don't have enough people to fill them because they don't have the qualifications? Over the last 2 years, we've identified 7 areas. And those 7 areas can be, the skills can be obtained by getting a technical college degree or certificate. And we are now saying to individuals in our state, if you will pursue one of those areas, 100% of your tuition will be paid for through the HOPE grant. I'm not going to name all 7 of them, but I can name a few that you will readily recognize. One is welders. You cannot talk to anybody who has anything to do with fabrication or any kind of construction that can tell you that they have enough qualified welders. Diesel mechanics, another one. CDL licensure. We don't have enough qualified CDL drivers. And if we don't have enough now, just think what the situation could be when we get the Port of Savannah deepened, which, by the way, that final little peg in the notch is going to be there within a couple of weeks by my estimation, and we will be able to get started on that long overdue project. And we look forward to that. But let me tell you about a part of our economy that really, I think when we first started talking about it, none of us really could imagine the magnitude that it has had in our state. And that is the film industry. We now rank as the third state in the country, only behind California and New York, in terms of film production. That's television, movies, commercials, video gaming. We are one of the leaders in video gaming. And that has had a $5.1 billion positive annual impact on the state of Georgia. Now, you're probably going to hear me talking about this because I have been talking with the major movie people, and they are loving Georgia, all over Georgia. It's not just concentrated in one area. Now, yes, we have Pinewood Studios from London, England, down in Fayette County. First time that that major movie company has ever ventured outside of the United Kingdom, and they came to Georgia. We're seeing other announcements all over this state about major sound stages that are being built. We made the right policy changes in the tax laws relating to that, and it has paid dividends. We consolidated our tax credits, and then we made the decision that we will allow them to sell those tax credits. That lighted a fire on that development. Now, we have been so successful that this week, I understand, North Carolina, which had been one of those leaders in the pack of film, they decided they were no longer going to renew their tax credits to attract the film industry to North Carolina. So guess what, folks? There are going to be a lot of travel trailers. There are going to be a lot of 18-wheelers bringing what was in North Carolina to Georgia. The Department of Economic Development Board met with Tyler Perry at his studios a couple of months back. And he said, you know, every time I bring somebody from Los Angeles to Atlanta, they don't want to go home. He said, we're going to dry Los Angeles up. And you know what? California has paid attention. This week also, California decided, hey, we can't afford to have so many of our folks leaving California and going to Georgia. They finally decided they're going to ratchet their tax credits up, try to slow them down. But you know what? They can't slow them down anymore. Once they get on Georgia soil, they are not going to turn around and go back. So we are very fortunate. Those are examples of what good policy will get you. It is an example of what good leadership will get you, and it's not just me. It's the General Assembly who have worked with me. It is an example of what a people in a state such as ours, who are willing to work hard, who are willing to step up when job opportunities present themselves, and if they need more training to be qualified, they're willing to go back and get it. It's the job of government to make sure they have the opportunity to get that training so they can get the jobs. Now, thank you all for your attention. I want to close by asking you for your help. My race, David Perdue's race, have attracted national attention. In my race, my opponent is the grandson, as you know, of President Jimmy Carter. President Jimmy Carter is his primary fundraiser all across this country. And they are raking huge amounts of money in from traditional Democrat strongholds, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., etc. I'm at a disadvantage, and I have to admit it. I'm not ashamed of the disadvantage here. I cannot raise as much money in my hometown as Jason Carter can raise in his. My hometown is Sandersville in Middle Georgia, Washington County, where I grew up, the son of 2 public school teachers. Jason Carter's hometown is Chicago, Illinois, That's where he grew up. That's where he graduated from high school. And he can run as many commercials as he wants to, claiming that he's a 10th generation Georgian or whatever. If you have not had your values shaped by the time you graduate from high school, probably not going to be too much change on that. They were formed in the midst of Chicago politics. And that is what we're seeing manifest in this election. So I need your help. I need your help financially. If you can help me or any of the other candidates, our major reporting deadline that will determine what the media has to say about the success of campaigns is the end of September. And we are working very, very hard to make sure we have a good showing in that election cycle of fundraising. But it takes more than just money. It takes people willing to get out and vote. Now, you're going to have the opportunity, working through your local party and the state party, to volunteer, to make phone calls, to knock on doors if necessary, do the kind of things that it takes to get some people alerted to the fact that, first of all, we're having an election. You'd be surprised how many people don't really know we've got an election coming up. And the other thing is voter apathy. I have so many people coming up to me and say, "Oh, Governor, you don't have to worry about this. You got it made." I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I hope to goodness this is not somebody who's trying to make an excuse as to why they're not going to show up and vote. We cannot afford for people not to come vote. So, my challenge to you is, first of all, make sure you vote. Make sure your family votes. Make sure your friends vote. Make sure your acquaintances at church or social organizations or wherever you have friendships, make sure they vote and understand the importance of their vote this time. And you can help us also in the campaign offices, distribution of signs, campaign literature. All of those kind of things do make a difference. The Democrats have an advantage on us there. They have inherited the very detailed database that President Obama has collected and assembled over 2 presidential election cycles. And John and his crew are working very hard to make sure that Republicans in Georgia are at least close in terms of having that kind of database and that kind of information. Now, I know, you say, I don't want to call somebody I don't know and ask them to vote. I had some folks the other day, a couple. They were just beaming when they came to talk to me, and they said, "You know, we didn't know about this calling people to ask them to vote. But over the weekend, we called 750 people, and they are so nice. They appreciated the fact that we called them." Now, you're going to have to put up with some folks who are just so glad to have somebody call them. They're going to tell you what their ailments are. They're going to tell you when their next doctor's appointment is. But you know what? Those are people that nobody talks to. And when you take the time, even though it may be for the purposes of asking them to vote, when you take the time personally to contact them, they appreciate it, and they will not forget that. So I ask you to do that, because as I said in the beginning, this is a critical race. We do not need the state of Georgia to turn purple or turn blue, simply because we allowed truth, personal responsibility, and individual liberty to be strangled in the midst of an election campaign. Thank you.